Hey, what's going on everyone? Justin here. Going to be covering an alarm install on my 2011 Lotus Evora. If you've been following the other videos, you already know this interior is pretty much stripped out. With it being stripped out, now is the ample time to install an alarm and a stereo. And so I'm going to be doing two video part series on those, starting with the alarm system. And basically the catalyst for this was the factory alarm system, although it's a really good alarm system as far as I'm concerned. I only got one key for it. So with the one key, I wanted a duplicate. If I go to get a duplicate, that's going to be money, $300-400 to have them cut and program, and it's just going to give me the factory alarm system. Now, I know it's kind of a novel idea of having a physical key. It's probably more secure in some cases, but I also like proximity keys, right? And so there's passive keyless entry, where you walk up to the car, it senses that you're there with the antenna, and unlocks the door for you. It's really neat. It's also very handy. I'm kind of lazy. I don't want to even reach in my pocket. And then there's a start button on the steering column, or you can mount it on the dash. You use the start button and it starts the car. So you don't have to take anything out of your pocket. You don't have to put any keys in the tumbler, defeat any of that. It just does it all from the safety of wherever you had it in your sweatshirt or whatever. I have had it in Audis and Porsches before. It's kind of nice. You really don't want to go back sometimes, and so that's definitely my case here. So I'm going to split this up into a bunch of different chapters. I'm going to first cover the factory alarm system. What are the major components of that? How does the immobilizer work? How does the relay cuts work? How do you bypass that in case you wanted to just completely eliminate it? As well as what is the new alarm system, right? What is it offering me over the factory one? What is the alarm install going to look like? I'll go over the tumbler defeating of the steering column, which is necessary if you're going to be using start button, because obviously you won't be able to turn the steering wheel without the key being in there to physically unlock the tumblers. And then I'll go over some preliminary install notes, as well as any security concerns with it that I might have to address, GPS tracking, stuff that you might consider for your own custom install. So anyway, I'm going to start those sections now, and stay tuned. Thanks. First video of this alarm install series for my 2011 Lotus Evora is going to be going over the components of the factory alarm system. And so basically what I've done here is I've printed up the Lotus service notes. This is all the wiring diagrams that I was able to obtain from my car, as well as the factory alarm installation and wiring for the AutoWatch 457 RLI, which is the immobilizer and alarm system that Lotus had decided to install in these cars, at least for this year. In addition, I've painstakingly gone through each of the circuit diagrams and obtained basically the color from Lotus, and I'll share all this in the description, but it's the color of the wire, the wire number as it's indicated on the circuit diagram, as well as a description. And all of this is going to be really important because that's basically going to be reused in a lot of cases on the new alarm install. But anyway, for this, I'm just going to be covering the factory one. So, with the factory alarm system, this is what it looks like. And then I'll go into the car and show you what it looks like physically in the car. But you have this brain, right? So here's your main unit. This is what everything plugs into. This is mounted under the dash on the passenger side, but on the driver's side if you're in the UK and you have a right-hand drive, I think. Or maybe it's on the other side. I'm honestly not too sure. Whatever the case, it's under the dash. You have all these connections here, but it's basically split down into 4 connectors. The 4 connectors are indicated on this sheet, but you can see the main one is this large 18-pin, and that's the one right here. And then the cuts are done by the 6-pin, of which only 4 wires are actually used in the install for the Lotus Evora. The cut for fuel and for the starter are basically these 2. So I'll get to it in a second, but in the car you have this unit. This connector right here, which I've just named B connector, has 2 circuits. Those 2 circuits, literally, they're just severed, and if you physically reconnected them, you should in theory be able to start the car, and I will test that. Before I go crazy with this, I just want to make sure from a sanity perspective that I'm definitely on the right track, which I believe I am, because this isn't my first alarm install. So anyway, that's what it looks like. Additionally, I was able to go through the Lotus service notes and confirm from the immobilizer perspective, what does this look like? So you could see, if you look at this section MR16A, here's wire M180, which I've put on this diagram. M180 crank relay immobilizer from EMS, so from the ECU basically. Here's your EMS engine management system. There's your M180. It goes into the immobilizer. The immobilizer just severs that connection. So if you tie these two together, you'll be bypassing what the immobilizer would have been cutting with a relay, and then that in theory allows power to the crank relay. So the crank relay is going to get an input from the EMS, and then that input is going to be, I believe, power, and then this would be ground, or vice versa. But it doesn't really matter, because as long as this is connected here and bypassed, this is going to work. So that's what I'll be testing first, as one of these sanity checks. And once those immobilizers are confirmed, I'm going to start basically cutting things out. So yeah, anyway, let's go over the actual components inside the car. What's really cool is the fact that I have the windshield out too. So with the windshield out, I'm able to get access to this. I can reach my hands in. Nothing's in the way, and so this is going to be really a piece of cake. It's the best time to install it, obviously, with having the interior out, but with the windshield out, it's just an extra bonus. So here's your alarm. This is under the dash. Like I said, it's kind of tucked in this corner here. If I actually go inside the car, you can see a little bit better. But here it is. So it kind of sits in this corner here, and you have your connectors. Those are your connectors I was just covering. So there's your alarm brain. We'll go over the rest of the components. You have down here an optional microwave sensor. Microwave sensor senses motion inside the car. It's probably got a little potentiometer. I think that's what that hole is. You can see that, where you could adjust the sensitivity, but that's basically a 3-wire microwave sensor mounted right in front of the shifter. There's also a tilt sensor. That was an option. I don't know if Lotus installed that in these cars, but that's another thing to consider. Then you have your steering lock. So you have a physical key that gets inserted in here. See, it's a little loose, but you basically put your key in, and then underneath this, I'm not going to be able to get an angle with this phone, but underneath this runs along this way, and there's going to be a pin that locks the steering column. Now, in order to do this, I'm going to have to defeat that mechanism, that physical pin. I'm going to try to do it as non-destructively as possible. The other way to go about it would be if you put in a key, a shaved key, and then use that to bypass it. But I'll cover that later. But you have your physical steering lock, you have your immobilizer, you have microwave sensor. So that's basically it. With this immobilizer, just going back to it, again, here's one of the connectors where you have 4 wires coming out. They're black. Each one of these are black. So what I'm going to do as a test is, like I said, I'm just going to back pin these things and connect those and try to start the car and see if it works. If it does, this is going to be easy street. Why do I say that? Basically, if you've ever played around with car alarm systems before, an immobilizer a lot of times will get an authentication from the key. There's sometimes a ring terminal that's installed on the steering column. It'll read your key. It'll authenticate using the ring terminal. It'll agree on the security system, and then the security system sends an OK to start message to the EMS. BMWs have it. They call it EWS and the DME. DME is the digital Motronics, whatever. That's their ECU equivalent. EWS is like electronic watchdog system, I think. It's probably something in German. But basically, they have to agree, and there's a code that's sent. This car does not have it. It's very simple. This is it. This is your immobilizer here. You don't have to worry about the ECU agreeing to anything. So without further ado, I'm going to start bypassing this thing. All right, well, first things first, I want to just confirm that the factory alarm system works as anticipated. So I don't actually want to start the car because the coolant isn't connected, because there's no radiator in the front. So I'm just going to tap it just to hear the starter basically turn over. And it's not working. So if I unlock the car and try again, there you go. All right. Unlock the car, immobilizer satisfied, able to start the car. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bypass those two relays and try again. I removed the immobilizer. You can see right here, it's completely unplugged. And there's the 6-pin connector, of which only 4 wires are connected. The 4 wires, I did a loop between pins 1 and 2 and 5 and 6. That completes the circuits for the fuel pump as well as the starter kill. So, with that in mind, bypassed the starter and the fuel, and I just want to tap it. Sounds good to me. I would actually expect to hear the fuel pump. Oh, and I do. So yeah, I can hear the relays clicking back here, and then you could actually hear the whir of the fuel pump in the tank. It's pretty quiet actually, but it's there. Okay, so with that in mind, that's how to bypass the alarm. It's literally 2 jumper wires between 4 pins. That's it. Okay, now I'm going to start going over the steering column. With the steering column, again, I want to physically remove the steering lock so that when I pull the key out, it doesn't do that. And again, I want to be as non-destructive as possible. Plus, the pins on the back of it, I'm going to be reusing for the alarm system. So I have to be careful not to destroy those. So I'll be taking that connection off and then seeing how this tumbler is actually fastened to the steering column. If I have to drill something out or gently bend something, that's what I'm going to do. Okay, as far as the ignition lock is concerned, you got the switch on the back. There's 2 tabs, top and bottom. You just pry it with a screwdriver, and the switch comes right off. Worth pointing out that I'm going to have to reuse these connections for the new alarm system. And you have a mix of wires in here. They're all low current, so there's low load. The gauge of the wire ranges from, looks like 18 to 16 for that middle purple one. But basically what that means is they don't carry a lot of current. They're probably just going to be grounding for relays, sending the signal to just the relay. So that's important. Also because I'm going to probably have to extend these over to where the alarm brain is going to be installed. And so it's just easier if they're a smaller gauge. Now, let me pick this up. As far as the tumbler is concerned, this is the part that actually interfaces with the ignition switch. Right, so you can see physically that's what's going to be keying into this and turning that switch to get into the various modes. For the tumbler itself, to get this out, what you have to do is, let's see if I can climb in the car here. Get your key, put the key on the first position, not any further than that. And there's a little pin that's really, I'm going to try to get it from this angle, but can't see it too well. It's right there. And what I'm going to do is depress that with a tool like this punch. And if I depress that and pull back, this should basically come right out. So I'm going to try to put the phone down and do that. Let's see. Okay, so there you go. Depress that and pull this out. So there you go. Your key, your tumbler, and basically inside is going to be, let's roll this back out. Inside is going to be the defeat for the steering column. And so basically I'm just going to have to manipulate that to be unlocked all the time. And that's effectively going to unlock the steering wheel. You can see I can rotate the steering wheel in the position that it's in now. So it's just a matter of keeping it in that position, right? I don't know if I'm going to glue it or what, but that's basically all you need to do. And then in this cavity is where I'm going to be installing the push button start. So that's that. All right, well, this whole do no harm approach didn't really pan out. Basically what I'm looking at right now is the tumbler. I had started taking this apart. And so you can see I have a little collection of little pieces here. There's like some pins and spacers and springs. And basically what happened is this piece I started twisting out with a pair of pliers. Came out, pin shot out of here, and then the steering lock, went back into action. And so used a bore scope, kind of stuck around in there trying to figure it out. Could not get this thing to unlock, and so I've resorted to using chisel, sharpened chisel, stuck it in here, and basically looks like what I just did is broke through. I don't know if you can even see this. Broke through the locking mechanism. So the steering wheel lock goes up. There's a spring underneath down here on this part that pushes this up. So I've just kind of broken it at the weak point, which is in between the two halves. And I'm going to try to extract that now. And that should hopefully unlock this. So I'm going to stop the recording, try to fish it out, and then update afterwards. There is a pin that I have exposed, right? That's the locking pin, whatever you want to call it. And that would push upwards into the steering wheel and prevent it from turning. Okay, so how you get to this is underneath there's this access panel. And basically you can see I drove a screw in there, I drilled a couple times, whatever. But if this comes down, that whole locking mechanism, everything in there would just fall right out. The problem is you got blind pins. There's a pin over here, and there's another one on the opposing side. You can't get to them with the steering column installed the way it is. I would have to remove it. I really just don't want to go through that process. So I'd rather just leave it installed. And I thought about originally gluing it. I was actually debating on drilling a hole into that pin and then putting a screw into it to hold it down and out of position, right? But what I'm going to do instead is take my hole saw or metal saw, whatever you want to call this, and I'm going to go in from this side where the ignition switch would be, and I'm going to basically, if you could see, I'm going to stick this in the hole, and I should be able to, I don't know if you can see it this way, let's see, I'm trying to fish it in now, there you go. I don't even know if you can see it, but you see there's the saw. I'm going to hold it up against that pin, and I'm going to saw it in half, and then I'm going to extract the whole thing. And so I drove a screw into the bottom there, pushing it forward so that doesn't flop around while I'm sawing through it. So that's the deal. That's where I'm at. I'm going to start sawing this thing, and I'll provide another update once it's in pieces. Okay, so I stopped here because I started extracting the bits. You can see I was able to cut through and then chisel the locking mechanism. And so I'm just going to fish these out with this extended magnet here. Okay, there you go. And so that concludes the ability for the steering column to lock. If you look in there, there is, get the light, there is nothing left. It's just a cavity now. And so there is no way for this thing to lock. Super smooth. I feel a lot better about it. Now, in retrospect, had I just removed the ignition switch, let me bring that back into picture here. Had I just removed this, okay, and left it in the unlocked, the steering unlocked position, which was basically that first position before pulling this out, I probably would have been fine. Honestly, you could have just left it like that because the steering column lock itself was defeated. And who the hell is going to reach in there and turn it, right? So if you wanted this to be completely reversible, I would advise just doing that. Stopping once you extract the tumbler itself, and then just leave this. Leave it alone. But I'm insane, and also I want to run, can't even talk, wires through here, and kind of have like a factory appearance. So running the wires, I'm going to run them up through this little hole here. They're going to go in and through, and then it's going to go right into the button. And the button's, again, is going to mount right here. And so that way, as factory as I can get it, and in order for that to happen, I had to get rid of all this stuff anyway. So that concludes the baggie of all of these broken bits. So I'm going to throw these two in there, set this aside, and then continue on with the rest of the alarm install.